Greetings Hex and Counter players, and welcome to my look at Wargame Design Studio Panzer Campaign's Normandy 44 Gold. The Normandy battle would be the most celebrated battle of World War II, at least in Western eyes, and has been covered by a myriad of games and popular media ever since. Normandy 44 is an operational level simulation of the D-Day landings and the subsequent battles to exit the beaches and move inland. This battle was an attritional slugfest through the bocage and swamp of the Cotentin Peninsula. The largest seaborne invasion in history comprised an enormous force of infantry, armoured, airborne, naval and air forces. Against this was the German West Wall that had been strengthened by the iron will of Rommel. All Western hopes for the liberation of France and the defeat of Nazi Germany depended on the success of the invasion. Will Eisenhower's plan succeed, or will Rommel's panzers throw the Allied invasion back into the sea? As at this recording, the current version of Normandy 44 is 4.05.3H2. So Normandy 44 includes 96 scenarios covering all sizes and situations, including a solo tutorial scenario, plus specialised versions for both head-to-head play and versus the computer AI. The master map is over 25,000 hexes and covers the entire area from Cherbourg in the north west to Argentan and Falaise in the east. All the air and seaborne landing zones are included. As of recent patches, all new images for unit art on both sides, including guns, infantry and vehicles, covering all of the forces of the Allied and Axis armies involved in the operation. Design notes which cover or include the production of the game, campaign notes and the sources used by the design team to produce this simulation game. Normandy 44 provides multiple play options, including play against the computer AI, play by email, LAN and internet live play, as well as 2 players hot seat. In the Panzer campaign's catalogue, it could be argued that Normandy 44 is the most controversial title. This could be in large part due to the infamous terrain where the Normandy campaign was conducted. The infamous bocage and the swamp terrain reduces movement to a minimum, and the high attritional nature of the combat can be frustrating. It could largely be seen like jungle fighting, such as the difficulties encountered by the attacker and the advantages held by the defender. In fairness to the title, most criticism is directed at the campaign game. During this presentation, we'll be having a look at Scenario 30, Operation Overlord, 6 to 30th of June Alt, a 250 turn monster. Whether you or I could endure 250 turns is another issue, but we'll see how we go with the presentation and how long I think it's interesting. So let's now move along to some comments on the Wargame Society's Discord page, which were offered recently in December 2025. I want to share that the player and I didn't feel completely satisfied with the Normandy 44 title. We are abandoning a game of number 30 Operation Overlord after about 3 days of the campaign. It's hard to say exactly where it went wrong with the design, but it is such a smash for the Allies. Neither of us think the German army will survive much past June 15th, let alone the end of the scenario on the 30th. The Germans just don't do any damage on the defensive, as I see it. And also the placement of the objectives are inappropriate for a 30-day campaign. It's just a poor design. This was then had a reply. Or if anyone else wants to try it for themselves head to head, I would suggest giving the Germans about 3 ticks on the advantage slider and see what results you get. A reply: yeah, it's a shame, as I was really looking forward to this campaign. It just seems the Allies are an unstoppable juggernaut. With the mass of force they have, they can cause untenable casualties in a quick time frame and disruptions. The Germans can never recover those units quick enough, so they get swamped, decimated. They can't pull them out of the line as there aren't other units to replace them with. Vicious circle. On the flip side, the German attacks seemed quite anemic, causing the odd casualty here and there, and then it wouldn't be worth them attacking, as the Allied counterfire would destroy far more than the German attack would cause. Another reply: also the Germans having operational freedom in Normandy doesn't sound appealing. I might get the game eventually, being a Normandy fanboy, but not in a hurry. Next comment: the biggest complaint most people have with Normandy 44 is the number of units. Normandy was the second Panzer campaign title released by JTS after Smolensk. The designer created a company-based order of battle instead of battalion-based. As a result, there are excessive number of units for most people's taste. Right. And I don't doubt it. I think they designed the entire title on the 2-day scenarios, and on long play it just falls apart. At first blush, I think those comments are quite reasonable, and I have bumped into similar type of criticisms in previous elements of the forum. So as we're having a look at the game, we'll keep these things in mind. Now, I'd like to say that I'm no expert at this game, maybe a good average player or an average good player, I'm not sure which, so bear that in mind, but we'll have a look at this scenario as the Germans. So we will select the recommended options, and away we go. And of course the first turn is by the Allies, and they will land their paratroopers. This causes many of our starting units around St. Mere-Eglise to be isolated, and by and large they will just act as a delaying force. None of these guys will get to escape. So the other thing we need to do at the start of the turn is try and identify any units which we are able to move. We then choose F for fixed unit highlight, and you'll find that probably about 98% of the Axis force will be fixed. So just to the north of this area, we managed to find a bunch of units which we can move. As far as movement goes, that's about it for this turn. We can fidget with some of our units around St. Mere Église, but that's about it. Then we have the option of using our artillery, and you'll notice even against the paratroopers it's not that powerful, but it does seem to be reasonably plentiful. So that leads us on to the question, how can we best use our artillery? In the St. Mere Église area of the map, the main hex types are listed on the screen, being beach, bocage, marsh, orchard, rough, rubble and town. Now in the grey part of the box is where you can find this information, and perhaps the most interesting of those factors is beach, minus 200%. So this means the attacker factors are doubled when attacking units defending on a beach hex. So for instance with bocage, with an attack, whether it be artillery or from another ground unit, it's immediately halved, hence why it's so hard to hack your way through the bocage. Marsh is another interesting one in that the defender has a 10% penalty. Now of course these factors can be combined in the one hex, so you just need to keep an eye on that. But certainly our intent for the first 5 turns, while the Allies are trying to get off the beach, is to artillery them with everything that we can possibly get in their range, to take advantage of that 200% damage factor to the defender. So I think the success of the German defence could very well lie in these first 5 to 10 turns. I don't know how long the Americans will last on the beach, but certainly we need to give them a pasting if we can. To get a gauge on the success or failure of this tactic, we're going to use the victory dialogue box. So this is the victory dialogue box at the start of the Axis second turn. So the Allies have had turn 1 and turn 2, and in turn 2 they've landed on the beach, and you can see their losses already have been quite considerable at 4,705. So as much as possible in these next 5 turns perhaps, I'm not sure, maybe only a few turns, but we certainly need to hope that we can get these Allied losses to really ramp up. So that is the end of the Allied second turn. So we have 2 units which have been released to us. We still have a great stack isolated, of course, and we have a bunch of units that have been stockpiled. So here we are at Omaha Beach. We grab the artillery dialogue, we scroll down till we find a highlighted or black entry, select the target hexes, highlight, and we blat away and see how our artillery goes again. Once again against a bocage hex, no effect is exactly what we don't want. 1 man is okay. Even if only fatigue or 1 man is achieved, that means that unit has to have a morale check, and we have a chance then of getting a disruption. However, with these paratroopers, I imagine they're A-class units, so we'd only have a 16% chance of getting a disruption. However, if we can keep them getting a fatigue or a one-man loss on particular units, we can stop them from getting any fatigue recovery. And of course, once they get to medium fatigue, well, then they would lose one level of quality. So therefore we would then go to the chance of 1/3 of getting a disruption. So at this stage, overall as the German, we're certainly hoping to cause some damage on the beach hexes with our 200% advantage. But this may have to be achieved by, oh, here's a beach hex, only 3 men, so that's not exactly startling for a 200%er. But the point is, we need to hit every unit in these hexes and get at least a one man or a fatigue first off, so they have a morale check. And secondly, and most importantly, is so that they cannot recover from fatigue, and build up the pressure that way, as well as killing units, which is highly desirable. We also are attempting to downgrade the force. So rather than facing A-grade armoured and infantry units charging across the French countryside, we try and get them down to a B or a C. That'll give us half a chance. And in fact, this will be our overriding tactic during the entirety of play of this scenario, is that constant concept of downgrading them at least, because as has been pointed out by other players, the German attacks or defence isn't huge. So this guy here probably would have been a good unit to attack, and no effect. And this guy looks like he's in a swamp and he gets plus 10%, so it shows you just how modest much of our artillery is. So no effect are our... And that's what we like to see. At least one man. Oh, a disruption. That's exactly what we want. So whenever a unit gets disrupted, it loses 1 level of morale. Now, morale reduction is the goal of building up fatigue. So they're the two factors we're really hoping to downgrade with the Allied forces. On the other side of the coin, many of our units are in bunkers and fortifications, which are hard targets. Now when they get hit by indirect fire, there is a 200% chance, or their disruption rate is measured at 200%. And this is what downgrades our force, and inevitably will allow the Allied player to push off the beach. And as has been pointed out in the comments, we have very limited opportunity to cycle in fresh units. So these guys end up fighting to the death sort of thing. So 4 men, that's good. 11, that's even better. 2. So with your anti-tank guns, it is worth going after the Allied armoured units in the hope of getting a disruption or fatigue. And once again, because we have that 200% factor there. Another disruption, exactly what we want. More disruptions the better. Another one, there we go. And I think rather than just blasting one unit like with all the artillery, you're better off hitting them all. Once again, for that fatigue factor. Right, so we're having a look at our British friends. On Gold Beach. So while we're here, let's have a closer look at disruption. Right, so disruption is the result of a failed morale check. Units with high morale, which is rated from A, the highest, to F, have a high probability of passing a morale check. In fact, A is 1 in 6. So 16%. Morale can be reduced by the following events. When disrupted, they have the morale reduced by 1. Medium fatigue reduces the morale by 1. High fatigue reduces the morale by 2. Low ammo or low fuel reduces morale by 1. And isolation reduces a unit's morale by 1. Also, morale can be caused by night movement, and the probability of this happening is modified by, or it depends on the quality of the unit. Now, disruption is doubled in the following circumstances: indirect fire on hard targets, vehicles or fortifications with a hard rating, and headquarters. When towed anti-tank guns or towed heavy AA guns fire on a hard vehicle. So disruption is doubled. The result of disruption: a firing unit is reduced to 50%. Its night movement is reduced to 66%. Headquarters range is halved, and the disrupted unit cannot be ferried, dig in, assault. Its defence in assault is halved, and it cannot receive replacements. Engineer units cannot conduct mine operations, ferrying, bridging, or bridge damage. So there you go, two very important factors there, morale and fatigue. especially in these larger scenarios and long time scenarios where the grinding effect of the warfare is more noticeable. So from here I'm going to go through and complete all my artillery firing. I have those two formations I can move. Then after that I will run the Allied turn, and I'll come back to you with turn 3 of the Axis turn, and we'll see what progress we're making. So I think I'm around about half an hour of this presentation, so I think it's probably enough of my droning on for you for one day. Hopefully I'll get back to you with another video, hopefully in a week anyway. We'll see what happens, but I hope you are enjoying the presentation or finding some amusement, and I'll catch you next time. So enjoy your gaming, and I'll catch you then. Cheers. Bye.